circadian rhythms and MDMA and exclusion / belonging. These are the topics that are going to be part of my story and sharing today. So if you're interested in these topics, carry on. Well, a few months ago, I started to experience this deep sense of frozenness in myself, where I would feel very disconnected from myself, from anyone around me, from life, from everything. It was this huge disconnection. It was quite painful and challenging. It's still there to some degree. It's still healing itself. It seems like the intense bit has gone away, or healed itself, but it's still there. And what's been really interesting is I took a therapeutic MDMA dose about 10 days ago. I have talked about my first session with MDMA in a different video, so I'll link it below if you haven't watched it, and you can watch it first. But this was my experience, my second experience. I took it by myself as I really wanted to dive into this frozenness. And so I was at my uncle's house in the city. I lied down outside and I took about 50, no, I took 50 milligrams. And I just laid down and closed my eyes. That's what I did. And then slowly I start to notice my mind quiet down. My thoughts were quieting down. And gradually I began to try to shift my attention into that frozenness, because that's what I usually do with any feelings or sensations, or that's how I guide clients to dissolve them, is to bring my attention or their attention into a feeling or a sensation and learn how to meet it and feel it and be open to it. And as I started to do that with my frozenness, I wasn't being able to fix my attention on the frozenness. It's like there was a trampoline or a spring, and my attention would just keep bouncing back away from that frozenness. And so that strategy wasn't working. And I just decided to let go of focusing on anything in particular. And I just let my attention start to unwind. And not focus on anything and just be. So if I felt like opening my eyes, I'd open my eyes. If I felt like closing my eyes, I closed my eyes. If I felt like wandering away, I'd wander away. I wasn't really controlling it in any way. And I was really shifting into a deeper surrender. And what was quite interesting was that I started to come into this deeper state of clarity, which is a lot of what MDMA offers. And I start to realize that for like my entire life, I have been very hyper focused. So, I don't know, starting at school at age 5, I'd go to school from 8 to 3:30, and then I'd have sports, and then I'd have homework, and then I'd eat and watch TV and go to bed. Like things were very like one after the other. My attention was always focused on something. There was never really time or space to truly unwind and to just be. And as I grew older, it carried on into university, work, spirituality, prayer, yoga, this or that. It was always like a lot of hyper focus and no real unwinding and just being. Everything was like do, one after the other. And it seems like, based on my experience in MDMA and the clarity that I'm receiving, that it just created like, well, this huge amount of exhaustion and fatigue in my entire system and in my mind, and a deep state of contraction in my entire body and mind. And that now is a time to unwind and to not focus on anything and to start to lean back into myself and give space for life to take its course. And so what's interesting is that as this clarity was coming through, I started to feel that frozenness begin to unwind a step further without me doing anything towards it, but just taking a step back and dropping deeper into being. and allowing my attention to do whatever it wanted to do without controlling it or bringing it into a certain direction or anything. And in parallel to that, I was just, as I said, I was lying down outside. I was kind of like half in a shade, half under sunlight. And I started to feel like I was starting to not feel like I was starting to notice more clearly the sense of nourishment that I get from being outside, rather whether it's under a sunlight or under the shade. It's like my senses were so amplified that I could just see this sense of nourishment that I get from the light. I could see it more clearly. And it was just like this deep nourishment that I was receiving, not just in my body, but in other layers as well. It was like I was being deeply nourished, not just my body. It was something of like it felt so much deeper than that, so multifaceted or multi-layered. And it was really confirming to me a lot about what I've been learning about circadian rhythm. I don't know much in depth yet, but I have been learning about what the kind of light of sunrise can do to our body and triggering different hormones and systems in our bodies, what UVA can do to us, what UVB can do to us. And the MDMA was just showing that to me just more clearly, but from an experiential standpoint and not from a rational, intellectual learning standpoint. And it was really like the sort of learning how to open myself up to being alive, to being outside, to being a part of the environment, a much deeper sense of belonging, which is so interesting because the frozenness that I experience feels like a deep sense of exclusion and shutting down and being away from the world. And what I was experiencing was a deep sense of belonging, and that connected to the light and how light seems to be healing me in this deeper way by spending more time outside. So this second MDMA session was just so eye-opening and clarifying and deeply healing in more ways than one. In this learning, understanding more deeply that the lessons that life is bringing me at this point, it's about surrender and spending more time outside, whether there's walking, lying down, sitting down in the sunshine, in the shade, whatever it is, spending more time outside, and how deeply healing and nourishing it is in more ways than one. I'm so grateful for that experience. Because along with the clarity, there's this like deeper sense of peace and knowing that kicks in, and knowing that I'm in my path, whatever path that is, but it's my path and it's aligned and it's healing and it's working and it's showing me the way. Hope this sharing inspires you to look into MDMA in a therapeutic way, to look into circadian rhythm, to look into learning how to listen to yourself and figure out what your pathway into healing is if you're searching for healing emotionally, mentally, physically, so that you can trail your pathway, carve your way, walk it, and blossom in your particular way.